I'm Michelle Misco. I've been teaching music for 28 years. So obviously I think that all of this is true. Music education is not just important to students, it's absolutely essential. And I want to show you guys, and I'm really happy, I saw a lot of elementary teachers here today. And I think there's some really important information for you. And luckily, we work in a district that values music education and has put a substantial investment into music education. So I want to talk about how great it is for everything that we all do, because I already know how great it is for me. So, there are so many articles. There's 30 years of research. If you put in music brain research, there's going to be more than you can possibly consume. There's some wonderful YouTube videos, so if you're interested. But the most important thing I think people need to know is in education in general, we've been talking about neuroplasticity. That's the brain's ability to reroute connections and create new connections. And so this benefits every part of learning. This benefits thinking in general. And so many studies show that music actually changes cognitive abilities, not just in children, everybody, adults. They've done an abundance of studies on students and adults. So if you have ever thought, I want to learn to play the guitar, you know what, do it, because it's going to help you when you're old. So that's a wonderful thing. A recent study, it talked about children, and this was a large sampling of children, it was about 1,500 children, involved in music training. They had better vocabulary, knowledge. It indicated an increase in verbal intelligence. And music was directly related to that because they were comparing against students with the same education without the music component. So they really are helping their language skills, so our ELL students, our kids who are struggling with language, and also reading. Yeah, they have actually shown, again, there's a multitude of studies. This isn't hard to find. If you're teaching reading and you think music might take away from that time, that is not correct. Music exercises the same parts of the brain as reading. In fact, I've had several students who are dyslexic or have reading disabilities who are highly successul in music. So, music teachers?
I didn't understand.
I didn't understand it either, but now I do. Music teachers are reading teachers too. So, good news, everybody. All right, let's talk about critical thinking skills. Some people have touched on critical thinking skills and how important this is to education in general, but not just education, society. We think about, some people are talking about politics or other things that happen in your life. And being able to be a critical thinker is so important. And honestly, we can all teach critical thinking skills. I think it comes so naturally in music classes because we don't just talk about notes. We don't just talk about rhythms. We don't just talk about how to produce music. We talk about the music in general. We make judgments. We say, what sounds good? What sounds bad? Why? And you're going to have a different opinion than you are going to have. And we have to learn to respect those opinions. We've been talking about dignity in our district. And to have the dignity and express dignity with each other in a classroom. My first period has 58 students who have to come together and produce music. Some of them love, some of them feel meh about, others are like, this song. And that is a typical music experience. But the ultimate goal is that they're going to create a piece of music together. They have to ask the deeper questions. They have to go home and they have to practice something over and over, and they have to make a lot of mistakes. And they have to learn to deal with those. How do I make my mistake better? What is better? How do I make this sound like something someone wants to hear? And then who is that someone? Because the people listening to you are judging you. Like we've learned today, we've all gotten up here and we're like, hey, they're judging what I'm saying. That is the musician's experience all the time. So I love what Ted talked about stress. Ted talked, that's funny, about stress, because all I could think of was how much stress we put students under when we put them under the lights, on a stage, in front of people. Now you're going to take your test in front of everyone. And you get one shot. That's all you get. And you have to hope they like what you did. So critical thinking helps us become better thinkers in every class, in every subject. Creativity. This is really important to everything. I've talked to some friends who work up at the University of Utah, and they said one of the things that they're seeing in students right now is they're not able to work with others. They struggle to think outside of the box. They aren't as creative as they used to be. Creativity and music and science really go hand in hand. If you look up Nobel laureates, there's actually a whole website devoted to that. It's like nobelprize.org. They talk about all the laureates who have been musicians. I think we all know Albert Einstein was a violinist. If you don't, now you know. There is a living scientist. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2013. And he won it in medicine. And when he was in school, guess what started his music experience? The recorder. Right, everyone's favorite, okay? But that's what started his experience. He started in school. He wasn't very good at science yet at the time. Then he took violin. He said he was not so good at violin. He thought, I'll quit. Then he realized he did like music, he just picked the wrong thing. So he became a bassoon player. I know, Audrey's shaking her head. Bassoon player. And he was a pretty fine bassoon player, or as he said, he made an okay stab at it. He actually thought about going into music as a profession. But after becoming quite good at science, he realized that was his calling. He continued to play. He still visits schools of music. He is still actively involved in helping students become musicians or have music part of their curriculum. Because I love some of these quotes are great. I think trying to be marginally successful in learning to be a musician taught me how to be a scientist. There's no creativity if one does not master the subject and pay exquisite attention to the details. But there's also no creativity if one cannot transcend the details and the common interpretation of such details, and use one's mastery of the subject like an instrument to develop new ideas. So you can't just do the technical things. You can't, you can, but you don't become a Nobel Peace Prize winner by only thinking within the box, by not being creative. And I'll tell you right now, music is a perfect place to learn attention to detail. It is so profound that there are so many things happening. If you come into a classroom where kids are learning to play an instrument, they're learning an incredible physical process. They're learning, how do I hold this thing? What am I doing with my hands, my two different hands? What is the music doing? What am I supposed to do in response to the music? What does that music even say? I always tell my kids it's like learning sign language and Spanish at the same time. So here's this book, it's in Spanish, and I'd like you to translate it, but sign it to the class. That is exactly what musicians are doing all of the time. There are so many brain activities happening. Will this benefit your classroom? 100%. Those thinkers, those kids are going to be in your room. And you're, hopefully, going to benefit from them being there and having those critical thinking skills, that creativity, and that ability to stick to something long enough to become proficient. I think that's something kids don't get quite as often now. Music can do all of this. It's our culture. It's creativity. It's communication. Teaching kids about beauty and emotion. I mean, there are a few places I can think that we do that. Of course, in art classes, that comes up a lot. Photography, theater. Those things start to come out more. Language, collaboration. That's a big one. They have to work together to create music. Connections with each other. Connections with the audience. Whoever their listener is. They're making connections all the time. Helps with memory skills. So again, all of you sitting here today, if you would like to improve your memory as a maybe aging adult or younger adult, that's okay, it's never too early. Then pick up that instrument. It doesn't matter if you're good at it, okay? But I hope that you will, maybe the next time kids are just sitting there doing an activity, maybe throw on a little Beethoven, a little Mozart. Because you know what? Listening to music benefits the brain too. Thank you.